it's Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Yeah. Happy Thursday. Lots going on.
There is a lot going on. Yes.
I know
Are
you
you
probably
closer to run?
People are tired of probably hearing that every time we come on here. That was a busy
It's
day.
a busy day.
Every day is a busy day.
Yes. That's the way it. Yes, it's a good way to be.
Yes, and it is. It keeps me out of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to do with myself if I wasn't busy.
I know. Last time we had a lazy day around here, you were in all kinds of mischief.
Yeah, right? Exactly. You know, all getting written up and all.
Yes. It's terrible.
Right. So I guess it's all for the best that things are one after another.
Yeah.
Had 2 meetings yesterday and today with our accountant. So reminder, we have a bookkeeper who works for us at church. And above that, we have an actual CPA, Certified Public Accountant, who really handles all the big part of our books.
Yep.
So our bookkeeper handles payroll and making sure bills get paid, but it is our accountant who handles all the budgeting and where things go and all that kind of stuff. So 2 layers, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So I met with our accountant yesterday and today, who is absolutely fantastic, and a very nice person too. And we started working on our budget based on last year's numbers. And so this weekend I should have an announcement about our end of year numbers. So
Okay.
So come to church, hear about 2025 budget.
Okay.
And then by the following weekend, we should have a proposed budget put out for everybody to look at.
And that'll all be before
the annual meeting. So 2 meetings on that and visiting folks. Plus, today was met with somebody else here in the office. I know you had some meetings in the office. And then writing some things for our email that goes out tomorrow, our newsletter. Goes out every Friday morning.
I know that snuck up on me too. I was like, I haven't got my stuff in yet. And so I had
3 updates to write, so we got all of that stuff.
It's Thursday, so it's
crunch time.
It was due yesterday.
Yeah.
So I had to scurry around today too.
Get that stuff. So just kind of one thing after another today, but got it. I think I'm back in line, as well as responding to some emails and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And here we are. It's 3:00. I mean,
and here
literally,
we are. It's 3:00.
literally, that's been the day today. And that's okay. But I think all is pretty well for the most part. And
I think so too.
And doing
I think
okay.
so too.
So anything you want to add or amend to that list that I just rattled off?
I think that's a pretty good list.
Yeah.
Yeah, a pretty good list. Good Bible study last night as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
In the book of Daniel.
Yeah, we finished off talking about Gog and Magog in
Yeah.
Ezekiel. And
Have you ever preached on Gog and Magog?
Nope, and I never will.
Angrily preached on Gog and Magog?
Yeah, because that would cause me to have to identify Gog and Magog as certain.
You could do an ambiguous sermon.
Yeah.
Everybody loves an ambiguous sermon.
That's right. You can't apply this, but I'm just going to tell you how much I hate Gog and Magog today, and you can draw your own conclusions. But like I said in Bible study last night, that it is a bit of prophecy about a nation and a leader who is against Israel. And if you grew up or was living in the 70s, you know, Hal Lindsey, who wrote The Late Great Planet Earth, he was clear about who Gog and Magog was. Like, he was convinced it is this nation and these leaders, and God's going to, you know, take care of them in the end, not in a good way. And, you know, it's speculation, right? I mean,
yeah, people, we kind of mentioned, people can get trapped in there and they never really find their way out.
Yeah, once you get caught up in eschatology, end time stuff, fulfillment stuff, you're that guy with the whole wall with pictures and pieces of string and going, this connects to this and this connects to this and you know, I've got it all. It is a rabbit hole, right? And it just never ends.
Now, if you're doing that about God's love, that's a different
That's
story.
a different thing, right?
Yeah.
Because you're probably living it out
Yeah.
and not creating a
You've got
poster board.
You've got some real world application. You can really tie into everything.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So-
it all works.
So we finished off Ezekiel and into Daniel. We heard the story of Daniel the prophet just beginning, and he is faithful even though he's living in Babylon, and he is willing to testify to his faith in front of Nebuchadnezzar, who is impulsive, erratic, violent, and unpredictable. All the things you want in a world leader.
All the things you usually get, too.
Yeah, and all the things you usually get. And so Daniel was unafraid because of his faith to point out to Nebuchadnezzar, and he does this multiple times throughout the story, that there is a God who is large and in charge, even over him. And so it is a great reminder for us to hold on to the faith when we feel like at times we are living in faithless times. It sometimes feels like that. So good to hold on to that. So we will actually be able to delve more into the story in the first Wednesday of February. And then, as I told Bible study last night, then we're into Lent because third Wednesday is Ash Wednesday.
Wow.
So we get 3 Bible studies in overall in the first January and February, and then we're back into a season, you know.
We are. I mean, yeah. This is the season in between here, Christmas and Lent. It really, I mean, it varies year to year, but it's really just a breath,
It is.
and then you're right back into it. So
As a church season goes, they call it the Sundays after Epiphany. We've talked about this before. You know, when I was a kid, you know, the bulletin would always give the actual date and then how many Sundays after
yes,
Pentecost, how many Sundays after Epiphany.
70th Sunday
Sunday
after
after-
Pentecost.
It has zero relevancy, you know, just but like somehow we got caught into this calendar where we have to name the thing, right? I always felt like this time, I don't mean worship itself, but the season itself is like no man's land. You know, you're between Christmas and Lent,
Yes.
or really Christmas, Epiphany, and Lent, and you're just kind of holding out until
Yeah.
Lent begins.
Right.
And
Right.
But for us, you know, because we use sermon series more than we do just kind of walking through what they call the prescribed readings, we're able to make something out of, you know, every season.
Even the ordinary.
Yeah, the
time.
ordinary or the in between time,
Yes.
we're able to do
There's
something with it.
something into each one of those moments.
And so, as you know, we've been talking about foundations and
Yeah.
building on Christ, our foundation in our life. And what do we build on that? We've talked about love.
I think that's a great topic. Yeah.
And this week
what's
we're
our
going to
foundation?
talk about building, helping others on top of that, all from the Sermon on the Mount. So, so we're digging into that this weekend too. So,
Very good.
Yeah. You ready for music?
Let's do it. Yeah.
So we go back to Sunday morning at 9:30, and the choir did a beautiful hymn that, regardless of what service you go to, you probably know this hymn.
All right.
So let's take a listen. great hymn.
Wow, yeah, and a great rendition by the choir
Yep.
there. That's great.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, choir, for that. And this hymn actually has a really fascinating story about the person who wrote it. And it was
Yeah.
written by Arabella Catherine Hankey, who was born in England in 1834, the daughter of a wealthy London banker and a devoted Christian mother, of course, Anglican, because that's the Church of
Right,
England.
that would be.
She wasn't called Arabella. She was called Kate by her friends. And her father, both people of faith too, belonged to an evangelical small group who was, well, it was led by, not by that time, but it was started by William Wilberforce.
Okay.
And if you're not familiar with William Wilberforce, he was a member of Parliament in England who worked tirelessly to end the slave trade.
Oh.
So, like,
okay.
huge in terms of a social justice, at heart to
Yeah.
abolish the slave trade of essentially stealing people out of Africa and displacing them and then making them personal property. When he became a Christian, William Wilberforce realized how terrible this was and was in Parliament, and it took almost his entire career in Parliament to finally get a bill passed to abolish the slave trade, meaning no more slave ships,
Wow.
no more
Wow.
stealing people and robbing people of their lives, all of that. So anyways, Arabella and her father were a part of a small group called the Clapham sect, and really Clapham is a part of London, so it's like a neighborhood.
Okay.
But the group was started by William Wilberforce, who is quite the human being. So they were all about, obviously opposed to slavery. They were also about social reform for working class, fairness for all. They supported missionaries and Bible societies and published evangelical pamphlets and journals. So these folks were all about doing good in a very practical way. And if you think about 19th century England, like the United States, during the Industrial Revolution, there were lack of regulations for safety in factories, and
Sure.
and there were these basically poor homes that you could live there as long as you worked 16 hours a day in a factory, and very poor living conditions and exploitation of very poor people. So these folks, people of means, actually saw, like, it doesn't impact us, but we know that this is not a good thing.
Wow.
So very, very impressive folks that lived out
I
their
guess
faith.
so. Yeah, this is a story I did not know, and interesting to think about this song.
And we're not even
the
to the hymn
history.
yet,
Yeah,
right?
we're not even to the hymn, but just the background behind it all.
So Kate Hankey, being a part of this group, eventually also became a missionary.
Okay.
And she had got very sick when she was on a mission in Africa. And while she was recovering, she wrote two poems, or a poem in two parts, in 1866. One was called The Story Wanted, and then the second part was called The Story Told. So two poems, really one, but two parts, The Story Wanted and The Story Told. Now, these two poems, as you know, many hymns were originally poems, that these poems were printed and distributed, and that Dr. W.H. Doane, a year later, took some of this to make, in part one, a hymn called Tell Me the Old Story. I don't know that hymn, but Tell Me the Old Story. And then from part two, took certain verses to write, I love to tell the story.
Really?
So now here's the rest of it. Then later, somebody by the name of William Fisher, who was a professor of music at Girard College in Philadelphia, found these edited poems, and he wrote the music to both Tell Me the Old Story and the familiar tune to I Love to Tell the Story, and first published in one of his hymnals called Joyful Songs in 1869. I mean, that's quite a journey, right?
That's quite the journey.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's how we got the hymn, I love to tell
And it
the story.
certainly has had some lasting power to
Right.
this hymn.
So it tells you that when a poem or lyrics or even music is inspired, as opposed to just writing something, it can have staying power because it has the power of God contained within it. And you know, and I just don't want to miss that the last line of that hymn in the chorus, you know, I love to tell the story of Jesus and his love. Not just Jesus, but
And his
Jesus
love.
and his love. I think that certain segments of Christianity might want to tell the story of Jesus, but then use doom and gloom and judgment and all sorts of stuff.
Right. And yeah, Jesus came to share the entire story of a walk in love.
A walk
really
in love.
is what he wanted to share with all people.
That's right.
And to be able to know that there's a difference there than just pounding people over the head and just until you repeat the name Jesus.
Right. Or pray this prayer and you're fine.
Yeah.
It's about Jesus and his love.
And his
And of
love.
course, lived out most clearly when Jesus died on the cross.
Yep.
Because it was love that caused that to happen, that he was willing to do that. So I thought today we would hit 3 different areas in Scripture that talked about the story and sharing the story.
Okay.
So let's start in probably what I'd call the most famous part of the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, as it relates to people of the Jewish faith. This is the keystone, cornerstone verse for most of Judaism. If you said, you know, go tell me what is the heart of God and in the heart of the Hebrew Bible, most, I believe, would say Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 9.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's not, we might actually get to these verses. We wouldn't be able to, we would probably quote some of Jesus.
Yeah.
But Jesus was actually going back to some of these
Some
verses.
of these too. And it's called the Shema.
Yeah.
So here it is. You probably know it. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. So there's first this declaration of one God, undivided. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. Jesus quotes that. These commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates.
Yeah.
Tell the story.
Tell the story.
And even as it relates to Judaism or our Jewish brothers and sisters, you know, there's already a command in place where God's like, all the stuff that I've shared with you, the commands and how to live, tell that, share that, because they're not meant to be prohibitive, but they are to enrich your life by giving you some guardrails.
Yeah.
So tell the story, share it with your kids. Life goes better when you are ready to listen for God and live within the boundaries that he has set for us. There is no doubt about that, because eventually, if you decide not to, all that catches up to you. It just,
does.
down the road, it just catches up to you. And so even God says early on to Moses, which he shares with the people, tell the story, share it. And you think about even in the celebration of Passover, what happens at a Passover meal, but you retell the story of God's love, of the liberation of the people from slavery
Yes.
in Egypt.
Yeah, and that's so important to hear that over and over and over again. As many here to tell the Christmas story over
That's
and over,
right.
to tell the resurrection
Or
story.
the communion story.
Yes.
We tell it, we tell the story again and again, even if you've heard it thousands of times, to hear the story again, to bring comfort. So even as long before the time of Jesus, God says, keep telling the story
Yeah.
of God's love. Now, if you jump all the way to, we're going to finish with Jesus today, but if you jump all the way to Peter, you know, Jesus' right-hand man, Peter, he writes a letter to the Christian church. He writes two that we have. I'm sure there are more, but we have two that are left over, 1 Peter and 2 Peter. He did not name them that. That's what we named them after the fact. And he talks about telling the story in terms of us being ready and able to tell the story.
Yeah, so from 1 Peter chapter 3. But in your hearts set apart Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope you have. But do this with gentleness and respect, keeping a clear conscience, so that those who speak maliciously against your good behavior in Christ may be ashamed of their slander. A lot tied up in those verses there,
Right.
and a lot of really good advice.
But I love that. Be ready to tell the story,
Mm-hmm.
and don't use it as a weapon to beat people over the head.
Right?
Do it with gentleness and respect.
Yep.
Be ready to tell the story. And, the secret in that is also be ready to tell your story of faith.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've never done that, I think it's really important maybe even to write it down once, but be ready to tell people not just Jesus' story, but how you've been changed, transformed by what God has done in your life.
Yeah.
And, it may be and sometimes it's evolutionary, meaning over time, your life has changed because
yeah.
you've slowly embraced Christ more and more in your life. So it's like a slow evolution. For some, it's a dramatic event, and there's this kind of moment where things change for you. So everybody's story is different, but certainly I think almost everybody can talk about, even if you were raised in church. I was raised in the church, you were raised in the church.
Absolutely.
We can talk about, going to church, but that's different than having faith. And that there was a catalyst or a person or an event that made you go from just going to church to actually embracing the faith, and then to talk about how life was different after that. Yeah. And it's not a road to perfection. We always want to make that clear. But there is definitely a difference between kind of before and after of
Right.
when you embrace your faith. And it can be a slow process. It can be a moment. It can be, summer camp. It can be church camp. It can be,
and one person's
something in
experience is
worship.
someone else's. It's very different, which
Yeah.
is what is being stated there. So speak in gentleness and keep your heart away from judgment and
Yeah.
maliciousness. But
And don't try to ram that story down someone's throat.
it's not. Yeah, you're not going to make your story their story.
That's right. But it gives food for thought. The other thing I'll tell you about this is when you share your faith, and I know that Lutherans are really not good at that.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. People have a hard time arguing with your own personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
They can argue Jesus all day long. And this, whether it's myth or real, and, that probably didn't happen or blah, blah. But if you talk about your own faith and how you've been changed by it, it's really hard to say to somebody, that's not true. So when you tell the story, you tell your story too, because it's really hard to argue with that.
No. Hey, you found a truth here that gives you life.
That gives you life. Nobody's
Isn't
going to
that
say
something worth sharing?
Nobody's going to say no, you didn't.
Yeah. That's something worth sharing.
It's something worth sharing.
Yeah.
So think about how you tell your story, and and over the years, you have words like testimony and other things, but it's really just sharing your own story and always doing it with gentleness and respect.
Yep.
And then we finish today with Jesus, and in the calling of the disciples, and I love this because it is the very beginning of his ministry. He's walking along the Sea of Galilee, and as he's walking along, he sees two brothers, Peter and Andrew, or Simon and Andrew, and they're fishermen. That's their trade. And he walks alongside them, and he just says to them, "Come, follow me. And I will," so not present, "I will make you fishers of people." And at once they left their nets and followed him. Now, I think that when I'm talking about telling the story here, the first thing that Jesus does is he doesn't say, "Come and do this," or come and believe,
Or come and pass a test.
or come and pass a test. Just come and follow, which is a variation of come and watch what I do.
Yeah.
Just come and see. And if that interests you, then you will grow in
I
that.
think that's a good start. Yeah.
Right? Just come and follow. Just come and check things out. And that's what we tell anybody who comes to church. Like, just come check us out. There's no pressure. We're not making you sign a contract. We're not going to track you down afterwards. Just come and see. Come and follow and see what happens.
Yeah.
If you're
And
moved by that.
that's that's been the story of Jesus from the beginning. Come and follow, find life, and follow that.
And follow that,
And
which will develop towards faith.
yeah.
And, and we've talked about this story before, and what you need to know about this is they had already encountered Jesus a little bit. So this wasn't like, magic, hocus pocus, cult stuff. They had already encountered Jesus teaching, and when Jesus walks by, they had already seen him in action.
Yeah.
And so when Jesus chose them or invited them to come and be a part of something, they had already seen something that made them go, I'm not walking away from this guy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna respond to that invitation. But it always begins with observation.
Yeah.
If you're gonna tell the story of faith, it doesn't begin with some fully formed theological notion in your heart or your mind. It begins with observing and seeing and growing, and then eventually, and I will make you fishers of people. That wasn't the next day,
Right.
that was 3 years down the road.
Yeah.
So the story can take time to settle in your heart before you're ready to share your story as well. But I think that's a great place to leave today.
I think that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to remember that.
So we're glad you've joined us. Don't forget, we're going to continue building on foundations this weekend, talking about why it is we help one another and help each other in the world and why that's important. So we want you to be a part of that. So Saturday night, 5 o'clock, or Sunday morning, 8, 9:30, or 11, which is Pacific time, because not everybody's in this time zone. But we hope you have a great rest of your day. God bless you. And if you're from the upper Midwest, stay warm.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay warm out there. Otherwise, God bless you, and we'll see you this weekend. Philip, will you play us out?